Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktabind Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 17th day of July 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 5 entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Text 11, page 238. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalayar indriyarapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalayar indriyarapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalayar indriyarapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalar indriyarapi yoginak karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye. Kayena with the body, manasa with the mind, buddhya with the intelligence, kevalai purified, indriyai with the senses, api even, yoginaha Krishna conscious persons, karma actions, kurvanti they perform, sangam attachment, tyaktva giving up, atma of the self, shuddhaye for the purpose of purification. Translation: the yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. Purport: when one acts in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna, any action, whether of the body, mind, intelligence, or even the senses, is purified of material contamination. There are no material reactions resulting from the activities of a Krishna conscious person. Therefore, purified activities, which are generally called sadachar, can be easily performed by acting in Krishna consciousness. Sri Rupa Goswami, in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12187, describes this as follows: Iha yasya hare dasye karmanam anasagara nikalasvapyavasthasu jivan muktah sa uchyate. A person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna, with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. Close quote. He has no false ego, for he does not believe that he is this material body, or that he possesses the body. He knows that he is not this body, and that this body does not belong to him. He himself belongs to Krishna, and the body too belongs to Krishna. When he applies everything produced of the body, mind, intelligence, words, life, wealth, etc., whatever he may have within his possession, to Krishna's service, he is at once dovetailed with Krishna. He is one with Krishna and is devoid of the false ego that leads one to believe that he is the body, etc. This is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana salakya Chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, in this verse, Krishna is continuing to describe activities devoid of attachment. The whole underlying theme is that we have to work with our body, with our mind, with our senses, with our intelligence in such a way that we're not further entangled in this material world. This is the central motivation of the activities of the yogi, to get liberation. And so, if one follows this principle of remaining Krishna conscious and acting with the idea of sacrifice, and always aware that I am a pure spirit soul and I am not this body, then whatever one does with the body, mind, intelligence, and the senses, one does as for purification. The whole idea is that we're in this entanglement of the material world because our consciousness has become impure, in that it is filled with all kinds of thoughts that help to further the false ego, the false sense of self, and to deepen our attachment to things of this material world. And those attachments and that activity that's done with the fruit of desire keeps us bound to this world birth after birth. So here he's describing nice activity of the yogis, meaning the bhakti yogis, abandoning attachment. Now the only way to abandon attachment is to use those very things that we may become attached to for sense gratification in the service of Krishna. This is described elsewhere by Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya is described as anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjata Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. That without attachment to the objects of the senses, but using them where appropriate in the service of the Lord, Yataham Abhiyunjata, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. One is not bound up by attachment to the object of the senses, but one is bound up to Krishna in attachment or attraction, ultimately with love. That attachment to Krishna is wholesome. It is the highly to be coveted, and because it obliterates attachment to this material world, and it is our ticket back to Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse, which he often did in his lectures and other places and other purports. Iha yasya hare dase. Iha means here, or in this case it can also mean activities. So the activities of karmana manasa gira, one's senses, one's mind, one's words, etc. one does as service to Hari, Hare Dasye. All of them. Nikolashrup Evastasu. If one does that, he's situated, even in this world, as a Jivan Mukta. We may still be in this world, but we're not of the world. We're liberated souls even while within this material world. So in Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, one doesn't have to wait until one dies in order to see if he's succeeded in liberating from this, getting liberated from this material world. One already feels liberated because he's living on that spiritual platform of being detached from matter and attached to Krishna. And all one's activities of whatever we have, our life force, or two kinds of senses, knowledge acquiring and active senses, everything is dovetailed with Krishna's will, and therefore we have, as Prabhupada, he has no false ego. Well, what kind of ego do you have? That's true ego, which is that I am a servant of Krishna. So this is the perfect stage, as Prabhupada said, perfect stage of Krishna consciousness described right here. So any questions on that verse? We can go on. Yukta, text 12. Yukta karma palam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtikim ayukta kama karena pale sakto nabadyate. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Purport. The difference between a person in Krishna consciousness and a person in bodily consciousness is that the former is attached to Krishna, whereas the latter is attached to the result of his activities. The person who is attached to Krishna and works for him only is certainly a liberated person, and he has no anxiety over the results of his work. In the Bhagavatam, the cause of anxiety over the result of an activity is explained as being one's functioning in the conception of duality, that is, without knowledge of the absolute truth. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. In Krishna consciousness, there is no duality. All that exists is a product of Krishna's energy, and Krishna is all good. Therefore, activities in Krishna consciousness are on the absolute plane. They are transcendental and have no material effect. One is therefore filled with peace in Krishna consciousness. But one who is entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot have that peace. This is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization that there is no existence besides Krishna is the platform of peace and fearlessness. Now that's a memorable phrase, that realization that there's no existence besides Krishna is the platform of peace and fearlessness. So, shantim. When you speak of shanti, the opposite of shanti, or peace, is anxiety. The peace is a internal peace. There may be so many non-peaceful things going on around one, but if it keeps one's spiritual balance, in that he's not getting, there's no fear, then one can be peaceful even when things around one are not peaceful. So Krishna is giving that formula. First line is all about one who is yukta, who is linked to Krishna in yoga, the yoga bhakti, devotional service. Karma palam tyakva, giving up the fruits of one's labor. Now it's understood in context that that food is given up to Krishna for his pleasure. And therefore, one becomes peaceful and fixed in consciousness, unflinching. Naishtiki, nishta. Ayukta. So the second line begins with just the opposite. Ayukta, one who is not linked. And then what's your motivated for action? You have to do something. Your motivation is kama. Your motivation is material desire. Ayukta kama karena, palai sakto na bhadyate. You become bound up by the fruits of your activity. You're bound up by the fruits or just the desire for the fruits. You may not actually be able to achieve the fruit, but the desire to taste that fruit is what binds you. Palai sakto na bhadyate. Attached, the attachment. So here you have the stark choice that we have. It's light and dark. It's bondage or liberation. It's service to Krishna or a fearful life of anxiety in human life and in other lifetimes. So this Prabhupada is quoting a verse here from the Bhagavatam, which he cites the verse, although he doesn't give the Sanskrit or give it full translation. But he says that in the Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, the cause of anxiety over the result of an activity is explained as being one's functioning in the conception of duality. So there's a verse that says, what's the source of bhaya? Bhaya is fear. Bhayam dvitiya abhinabhishyatak syad. Ishadapeta sivaparhiyo asmati. Fear arises when one sees anything as separate from Krishna. Dvitiya. This whole material world is Krishna's energy. And we learn in the 7th chapter that it is separated material energy. He analyzes it, earth, water, fire, air, ether, etc. So where is it separate? Just like if you see the classic example Srila Prabhupada gives is the first day of school. A child is taken to school. The mother feels separation. Oh, now my boy, my girl is growing up, and now I take her to school, and now I go back and I clean the room. You've heard this analogy before. So in cleaning the room, there she sees a little shoe of the child. The tears are flowing from the corner of the eye. So many pastimes I remember that shoe, right? So does she love the shoe? No, she loves the child. So you go into the room, and everything there is related to the child. There's the games he plays. There's a little bed. He didn't make the bed, and everything is there. So the child's presence is there because he's connected to it. So the mother, is the love is pulled out. So similarly, the devotee sees everything in this world as connected to Krishna because it is his energy. He's present everywhere. And especially he or she tries to use that energy in such a way to remind him further of Krishna and use it in Krishna's service. Just like this temple. What is it? It's just a mound of, material energy. The rocks, the bricks, the metal, whatever goes into making this building. But because it has been transformed, it wasn't conceived in that way, built in that way, but it's been transformed by the devotees. So now you walk into this temple, into this room, immediately you're reminded of Krishna at every step. There's the devotees, the music playing. Here's the Krishna Leela, these little friezes or whatever you call them on the wall. And of course there's the deities directly reminding you of Krishna. So here, this temple, this earth, water, fire, and air, and ether has been purified. It has been returned to its spiritual nature. It's no longer ordinary brick and mortar. Right? The same thing is true for the sound. Sound is the most basic principle. Everything begins with sound. So when the sound vibrations are enunciated or remind us of Krishna, beginning with the holy name, the Bhagavad Gita, we're reading the Bhagavad Gita every day. These are Krishna's words. We're not reading some other book. So therefore, that brings us closer to Krishna. It purifies us. And it doesn't bind us to this world. It binds us to Krishna. It's a simple science. But the difficulty is that we're so accustomed to trying to bring the objects of this world into our own pleasure that we separated from Krishna. And that's called the Dvitiya. Dvitiya anabhinavesha means absorbed in the duality of this world, in something that we separate from Krishna. We forget all about Krishna. You can do it for lifetimes. So that's the Isha. Ishad apetasya. turning away from the Isha, from the controller, from the Lord, and becoming absorbed in his energy. That's the definition of Maya. It's the definition of bondage, and it produces suffering for the soul because it's unnatural position. You can never really be the master, controller, and enjoyer of this world, of this energy, because it's not yours. You're actually a thief. Even though you don't feel like you're a thief, the energy, the objects of this world are constantly slipping out of your hand. You can't keep them under control. The most powerful billionaire, what does he do? He tries to control as much of this energy as possible. Buys an island, a yacht, $100 million yacht. It's obscene. And in this way, I can enjoy more than some other billionaire. The whole thing becomes control. You sink down into the modes of nature, and you're so much anxiety, just like this guy Epstein. Epstein. Very good. Oh, I'll remember that one. What a low life. It just your skin crawls just to think of that this guy, and what he did with his power. With these poor girls, and so now what happened? Now he's the most miserable guy. The whole world spotlight is on him. He's sitting in jail, and he's obviously as corrupt as can be. So where's the peace? Where's the shanti? No shanti, Whereas the poor, the simple Bhakta Zak there is cooking in the kitchen, and he has, who knows, a few dollars to his name, but he's peaceful. He's happy. He's nicely situated. Who's richer? The billionaire sitting in jail now and in anxiety, or the simple bhakta who's using Krishna's energy? So that's the lesson of this.
Would it be
Ashanti.
Would be unhappy?
Yes, non-peaceful, anxiety. Yeah.
And you'd have the A in front of it.
The A is negates. That's like non.
How come you wouldn't have na-santi?
I don't know exactly. I don't really know Sanskrit that well, but I think na is used for adjectives.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, but so shantim naistikim. The word ashanti doesn't appear here, but it appears in other places. But that's it's there's a verse of Lord Chaitanya speaks, I think, to Sanatana Goswami. He says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shanta. This is right out of the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Vihaya Kama Niksama Puma. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shanta. The pure devotee has no material desire, no desire to enjoy something separate from Krishna. Whatever he's trying to do is in order to bring the material energy and also bring the spiritual energy. The most valuable service to Krishna is to bring one other soul to his lotus feet, so that you have another soul using the material energy. You can see how it expands exponentially. But one way or another, to bring the material and spiritual energy into the service of Krishna. That's the happiness of the devotee. If Krishna is pleased with your service, you made an offering, it can be a very simple offering, but it's a heartfelt offering. You feel the bliss because Krishna is happy to get that offering. He doesn't care what you offer. He's just concerned that you do it, that becomes a vehicle for your expression of love for him. And so that's the platform of true peace, because you can do it anywhere. There's this, over the years, we've had devotees arrested. There's this incident happened in Mumbai. When did that happen? Late 70s, early 80s, I think, when they had just established the temple in Bombay, but there was still a lot of ferment around the temple. And there was an attempt to, I forget how it worked, accuse the devotees of some, there was a riot going on, and one of our guards that we hired tried to stop one, and he hit someone on the head and he died. And so they were trying to pin it all on the devotees. And so anyway, a bunch of devotees got arrested and put in jail. And so, having been instructed by Prabhupada, Prabhupada had already passed away, but he had instructed them how just keep chanting in the jail, and we had other devotees arrested on Harinam. So there they were sitting in the jail for some time, and they were all chanting like anything. And they would do, because it's a fact, you can do service in your mind if there's no other way of doing it. And you get the same credit. So they would perform elaborate artiques, for imaginary deities. And they would cook elaborate feasts. And they would sit down and, honor the feast, imagining they're eating the most luscious pakoras and sabjis, And of course they would, I don't know, I guess they had books, maybe whatever they knew about Krishna, they're sharing it. And in this way they passed their time, and they were able to remain relatively free of anxiety by doing that. I don't know how, they weren't in for a couple of weeks, they got out. But the point is that even in the greatest difficulty, you can remain centered in Krishna if you've led a life of Krishna consciousness. So Lord Chaitanya says, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shanta, because the devotees of Krishna are free of material desire, therefore they're peaceful. Those who are filled with material desires are always unpeaceful, no matter how much money you have or how many material things you have. It's right in the 16th chapter. Aneka Branta, I forget how the Sanskrit goes, but he's saying that the demons, those who are sworn enemies of God, atheists, they're asha pasha shatar buddha. They're bound by thousands of ropes of material aspirations. Asha means material desires that are really enter strongly in your heart, and it's a strong aspiration to enjoy in this way. You can't, you dream about it. You say. So that's asha pasha. Pasha means ropes. Bound by thousands of different ropes of desire, the demons are never peaceful, they're always in anxiety. So therefore, the next line in the verse that Lord Chaitanya says is, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. So he summarizes the categories of materialists, Bhukti Kamis, Siddhi Kamis, and Mukti Kamis. A Kami is one who ardently desires something. So most of the people, they have no idea. They're not yogis, they're certainly not devotees. So they're bhukti kamis, meaning they're desiring varieties of gross and subtle material pleasure. So they're not peaceful, no matter how, especially if you have it and then lose it, which is what happens in the material world. Even if you still have the object of your desire, but you've changed so you can't enjoy it anymore, that's equivalent to losing it. That's even more painful. So that bhukti kamis, they're ashanta. That's ashanta, non-peaceful. Then there's those who are a little more intelligent and understand that, oh no, all this material attachment is causing us great anxiety, so we're going to get liberation. Those called the mukti kamis, those who want to be free from birth, old age, and disease and death. They reject bhakti yoga. They do reject bhakti. They want their own liberation, means that they somehow or other are going to get free from that attachment. And as Prahlad Maharaj says, then they go off alone. They don't want to hang around in the cities, because the cities are going to distract them from this project of withdrawing the senses and so forth. So these are called mukti kamis. But it's impossible, because we are living entities, we're persons. And we have activities, we naturally have desires, and we have interaction, not with the material, but with the spiritual. So that's artificial. So they're not peaceful either, because their standard of liberation is never steady. Any little, remembrance or stimulation for sense gratification, then they fall away. Their mind goes, because they're not attaching to Krishna. So there's so many in history. Prabhupada would give the example of Vishwamitra, great yogi meditating in the forest. So classically, Indra becomes envious. He's afraid that they're going to take my post by getting, yogic powers. So he sent down the Menaka, a beautiful Apsara from the heavenly planet, to try to seduce this yogi, So he's sitting there, in the forest, and she's walking. Well, he's got his eyes closed. So she puts the ankle bells on, and that can be a very attractive thing. So she walks by, he opens his eyes, and he sees this, beautiful girl in the forest, and that's it. He's lost it, and he's attracted. So they have sex, and there's a daughter involved, and he's compromised. There's others also. Repression, as Krishna says, what can repression accomplish? Repression doesn't accomplish anything. We want to sublimate. We need to engage, dovetail our mind, senses, intelligence, everything in the service of Krishna, and then everything becomes purified, then you become peaceful. So the third category of non-peaceful are the siddhi-kamis, the classic yogis who, they don't necessarily want mukti, but they want siddhis. They want, the 8 siddhis, smaller than the smallest, larger than the largest, controlling others' minds, getting whatever you want. Imagine how attractive they are to the materialists. Devotees, forget it. They're just going to distract me. But the siddhis, if they can get some of those siddhis, whoa, they're attached. So they're not peaceful either, because there's always some other yogi who has more siddhis than you. So there's the battle of the Babajis. I always tell this story, you've heard it probably 10 times. The one about the Kumbh Mela, where you have the yogis coming out from the Himalayas, different groups of them. So they come down because they want to get liberation. They bathe at just the right time. So you have different groups, in the different banners, different parts of the Himalayas. So everyone wants to be able to bathe at just the right, precise moment, which is I don't know how long it is, but it's a very short interval. Astrologically, it's calculated. It's just at this time when the sun is here and the moon is there. So they have pitched battles, as between the different Babaji groups as to who's going to be able to get into that Triveni, that spot. So where's the peace? They've lost the peace, You have these Babajis, they're walking around naked. Some of them they're 300 years old. They look like they're 50 years old because they've got some siddhis and power of slowing down the respiration. You can do that. But what's the use? The tree is 1,000 years old. This prolonging your life is not going to help. So bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. Krishna bhakta nishkama ateva shanta. The Krishna bhakta who has no material desire, his only desire to serve Krishna, he can be truly peaceful. Because one of the wonderful things is that the success is just in your trying sincerely. If you genuinely try sincerely for a certain service to Krishna, and you don't succeed, then it's not like a totally depressing thing. You tried, and Krishna appreciates the effort. And if you keep trying, then he keeps giving you bliss and peace and all the good things. And that's what Prabhupada did. He tried like anything for years in India to start the whole mission. The Gaudiya Math, he was hoping that we work with the Gaudiya Math, but they disintegrated into different maths. They all wanted to be the one leader. So it collapsed. So Prabhupada had his order from his spiritual master to preach in English in the West. So basically it was to preach in English. So he first started in Jhansi. There was he was able to get a building, but it wasn't really his. He was, given a temporary lease on it. But he started the whole League of Devotees in Jhansi. There's a wonderful history in the early 50s, I think it was. And soon after he had taken not sannyas but vanaprastha, But then after, committing so much to that and getting some followers and donors to keep it up, it was repossessed by the governor and given to basically the ladies' auxiliary. And Prabhupada was on his own. Now what to do? He tried, but he didn't give up. He went to Vrindavan and he started printing in Delhi. He would print the Back to Godhead and go distribute it on the streets of Delhi, getting a few pies for each one, barely. Sometimes either he could print the BTG or have breakfast, but he couldn't have both. So he would go hungry and print the bag. Going on like this, years. Until then he got, one friend told him that instead of printing these magazines, try to print some books, because the books are more sturdy. People will hold on to them, Magazines are thrown away. Magazines means a few pages of newsprint, that's the magazine. So Prabhupada took that to heart, and he worked like anything to print the first books of the Bhagavatam, the first canto. It took him years, took him like 3 or 4 years to print those 3 volumes, because he had no money. He had to use one book to try to get donation to print the next book. And, doing everything, typing, 2 fingers on this ancient typewriter, no electric typewriter, like this. Like imagine the ribbons running out, So typing, and then somehow getting a typeset, checking the proofs, going to Delhi, getting the paper, hauling the... And he had to check everything. He was the writer, the proofreader, the editor, and the distributor. Anyway, tremendous determination because he had his order. But even though he had so many setbacks, he was even gored by a bull or a cow, on the street after he took sannyas. He got gored, and he even says, "I just heard that or read it. What is this, Krishna? I took sannyas now." That's the natural thing. But he recovered over time and proceeded. And then he kind of through the Hail Mary pass, like the hopeless pass from your own end zone, and somebody. So he gets on the boat, just going to America with no money. Unbelievable. So this is real surrender. And even though if someone had tried to say, well, here's the idea, it's almost like a business. He says, no, there's no prospect for success. Here you have this elderly man. You had the business lady, who was the Sumati Murarji, who ran a shipping company, So she's a Vaishnavi, and Prabhupada I think she helped him print one of the books. Somehow he had a connection with her. She was not a Gaudiya Vaishnava. She belonged to a different line, but very close, Pushti Marg. And so he was trying to beg a free passage on one of her ships so he could get to America. No question of flying. He had no money. And so she said she refused on the basis that he's too old and that he's going to die there. You're going to die there. I'm not going to give you passage. So probably so he did a sit-in. He sat down on the curb of her business and just chanted there until finally she saw him, and so she said, okay. So she relented, gave him free passage, but he had to get this form, that form, and he had to, by some miracle, he got a sponsor in America. You'd have to have that, otherwise the Indians wouldn't let you go, or the Americans wouldn't let you come. So the point is that Prabhupada told, he said, to all of these efforts, they were successful because he was trying his utmost. In other words, it's a spiritual endeavor, and with just the trying makes you a success. If it's sincere, and eventually, Krishna reveals himself. So that's the idea here, is that you can really be peaceful if your every act is given over to Krishna. Shanti maptade naishtikim. Nishta means this firm determination. You continue. That's the text 12 we just read. But if you're not linked up to Krishna in devotion, then whatever you do is done on the basis of karma. And you get bound up by the very fruits that you're trying to enjoy. The enjoyment of the fruits is your bondage, is the source of your misery. Krishna says that right in this chapter in a few verses. He says, Yehi sangsparjara bhoga dukkha yona evate, which is such a revolutionary statement. This pleasure of the senses contacting the sense objects is the source of your misery. And because that pleasure has a beginning and an end. So it leaves you unsatisfied. The soul wants continuous, ever-increasing bliss. But all you get are these little flickerings of sense gratification. It's a very poor reflection of actual pleasure. But that's all you know. So the soul is always in anxiety. How can I increase? How can I get more? How can you be any peace in that situation? Okay. If there's no discussion, we can read one more. Text 13. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvade pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Purport. The embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body, or the figurative city of the body, are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life, in which his deliberations are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are mentioned as follows: Navadvare Pure Dehi, Hangso Le Lahyate Bahi, Pashi Sarvasya Lokasya, Stavarasya Charasya Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of a living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus, genitals. The living entity in his conditioned stage identifies himself with the body. But when he identifies himself with the Lord, within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. This is from the Shvetashvara Upanishad 3:18. Therefore, a Krishna-conscious person is free from both the outer and inner activities of the material body. So he's reiterating similar ideas in these verses. He's bringing up the idea of sannyas again, because you remember this was the beginning of the chapter, began with these 2 words, sannyasa and yoga. Sannyasa karma yogascha, this is text 2, nikshreyasa karavabo. The renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the 2, work and devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So sannyas means not renunciation of work, but renunciation of the fruits of the work and renunciation of the desire to enjoy those fruits. So here, even the mind, if one mentally renounces all actions, and more important than that for bhaktas is not to mentally renounce actions, but rather to renounce the fruits of the actions and to give them over to Krishna for his pleasure. So that's he doesn't do anything. So here, again, falling back on the idea that if you're acting, you may be doing so many things, but you're not. The motivation is not to enjoy. Then, in one sense, you're not doing anything. You're watching your body work in service to Krishna, and you're employing it, as far as, and that's your. It's just like your whole body your whole day or your whole activities become one of sacrifice and worship. Like I like to quote this verse from the 11th canto, which kind of is very related to this. Kayena vacha manasendriyava buddhyatmanava nusata svabhavat karoti yadyat sakalam padasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. That one, and this in this section is related to this sense of transcending fear. Because that verse about the origins of fear being forgetting Krishna and getting absorbed in his energy, that's in this series of verses, of which this is one. So what this verse says is that with your body, with your voice, with your mind, kainena vacha manasa indriya, with your senses, both knowledge acquiring and active senses, knowledge acquiring be the classic eyes, ears, nose, etc., and active senses of the hands, the feet, the voice, etc. With all these, indriya, kayena vacha manasa, the mind, indriyava, buddhya, the intelligence, buddhyatmana, the very self, buddhyatmanava, kayena vacha manasendriyava, buddhyatmana manusata svabhavat, whatever you have attained of those, each one of us has this series, then karoti yadyat sakalam, whatever you're doing, sakalam, all the activities are done, you do it with this conscious idea, I'm doing this as an offering to Narayan or Krishna. I'm breathing, for Narayan, I'm walking for Narayan, I'm washing this dish for Krishna and so forth. Everything is consciously done as a sacrifice for Krishna. You do it as a sacrifice, then you're properly situated beyond fear and you're headed back to Godhead. That's actually the meditation. So it's not easy because the mind is trained or conditioned to thinking of ways of accepting things for one's personal pleasure. So it's a discipline to train the mind in such a way that whatever you're doing, you're connected to Krishna. Now, because Krishna is all attractive, if one places the mind on Krishna through the holy name and other ways, then one will naturally feel an attraction, and that attraction is expressed through the activities of the senses. That's a natural feeling. If you love someone, then you want them to be happy. You love your child. Okay, you make sure the child is comfortable and so forth. He's fed nicely, and you give him presents at Christmas time. You want him to be happy. If the child is happy and he comes and runs and hugs you around, your skirt, whatever it was when I used to do with my mother, they used to wear skirts all the time, then the mother's in ecstasy, material ecstasy, for a little bit. That's fulfillment. My child is happy and healthy, and he's learning, and he loves me, and I love him. That's motherhood. Right? So that, of course, it's material and eventually changes, so that's tragic. But the same idea is there for Krishna. If you can just make Krishna happy, you can please him with some offering that you make, because you put your life, soul into it, you put your intelligence, you add the spices at the right time, you made it with you clean the kitchen. In other words, you follow all the rules and regulations that you've been trained to do, and you put your full attention and love into it, and you make the offering, even if it's not cooked perfectly, Krishna will accept it. Oh, this is an offering of love, and you feel good about it, and that's a pleasure that's not material. It's not material pleasure. That pleasure that comes from pleasing Krishna can expand unlimitedly, and that's what we're talking about, the ocean of bliss and all of these wonderful things. But the happiness of the material world always brings suffering. It always brings suffering, because you're always competing with others. They want what you have. You can't enjoy it anymore. It's such a struggle to get the money to buy it. Then you lose it. You go into debt. So whatever the enjoyment is there is tinged with the pain of having to repay the debt. And soon, no, doesn't work. Okay. I wanted to read something to you. You're going to be the first to hear this. This is a beautiful expression of devotion for the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't know if you have a set of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You have a set of Srimad Bhagavatams at home?
Yeah, I'm rereading
Okay.
my second round.
So you have a nice set on your shelf.
All different years.
Different what?
They were all published different years. I had some really old ones.
Oh, really? Huh?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Okay. So this is a
The second.
okay. So here is how this great devotee, Sanatana Goswami, who was one of the 6 Goswamis, and he was the elder brother of Rupa Goswami. Sanatana was kind of the senior, and Rupa Goswami regarded him as his spiritual master. He wrote several books, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is the most important book that was actually translated and commentated on very nicely by Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu. And he also wrote this book called Krishna Leela Stava, which is 108 obeisances to Krishna, and it's a summary of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. But it has over 400 verses. Now, at the end of this book, he has several obeisances and glorifications of different aspects. One is to Jagannath, one is to, I think, Mathura, but there's also one to the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm just going to read you the English here, because we're running out of time, of his glorification of the Bhagavatam. And I can send it to you, I worked on it today. So I'll just a couple of Sanskrit and then all the English. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadhya, Sarva Lokaika Drikpada, Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kali Dvanto Ditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. Which means, O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all the Vedic scriptures, O singular transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, O rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, O you who grant spiritual vision to all the people of the world, O life breath of the Vaishnavas, O Lord, you are the sun risen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. You are actually Lord Krishna returned among us. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varsyaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. By reading you one attains supreme transcendental bliss, for your syllables rain pure love of God upon the reader. You are always to be served by everyone, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madeka Bando Matsangin Man Guru Man Mahadana Man Nishtaraka Man Bhagya Madananda Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my constant companion, O my spiritual master, O my great wealth, O my savior, O my good fortune, O my source of bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. And finally, Asadu sadhu ta dayin, atini chochatakara, hanamun chakadachin mam, premnarit kandayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O giver of saintliness to the sinners, O uplifter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Please always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love for Krishna. Isn't that beautiful? I'll send you this, and you can read it before you read the Bhagavatam. What do you think?
Read it before.
Well, you can read it before or after, or read part of it. In other words, it'll fire up your enthusiasm for Bhagavatam. Now, we're almost out of time, so the Bhagavatam itself glorifies the Bhagavatam. The third verse of Bhagavatam is an injunction to, you should drink the nectar of the Bhagavatam. And it has a beautiful lilting meter to it. Nagamakalpatado galitam palam shukamukadamita dravasam yutam pibata bhagavatam masamalihim mohadaho dasika bhuvi bhavuka. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the desire tree of all the Vedas, just like it says here. Nagamakalpatado, and it's been touched by the lips of Shukadeva Goswami. It said that if a parrot pecks at a fruit, that is sweet, it'll become sweeter. I'm not sure why. But Shukadev's poetic brilliance has added to the sweetness of the Bhagavatam. Shukamukad amrita dravisam yutam. So, and the fruit is completely ripe and ready to be eaten, and practically semi-soft and easily swallowable, Prabhupada says. But the Bhagavatam, drink the Bhagavatam, drink the nectar of Bhagavatam. Rasam alayam. Drink that rasa up to and beyond the point of liberation. The fruit of the Bhagavatam is not liberation, but it's pure love for Krishna. So that rasa muhuraho, again and again, saintly devotees, become rasikas. Rasikas are those who can relish the nectar of spiritual exchange. So it's an injunction to, this is the third verse of the whole Bhagavatam. So then you launch into the Bhagavatam. So this is what we have. It's if we can cultivate this taste for these things in relation to Krishna, then we'll find happiness. Even though we may get old, we probably will get old. But we can feel it our youth. We saw it with Prabhupada. But the soul is ever fresh, ever youthful. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.